Hey, deserving listeners, some of you sent me this video where Kim from 90 Day Fiancé is being interviewed on Entertainment Tonight. Let's watch.
I was actually driving to work one day and he was like, TLC is going to call you today. And I was like, wait, what? I pulled over and I was like, no, like, I don't want to do this. Like, cause my life, I have a good life, you know, and I take care of myself and everything. And then I thought about it and I was like, you know what? I'm 50 years old. Like, why not? Like, why not? You know, like, why not put...
All right, it's interesting. So according to her, she's saying that Usman reached out to TLC and then asked if TLC would reach out to her. And at first she was thinking, no, I don't want to do that. But then she thought, well, let's go for it. That's an interesting detail. And I am appreciative of those kinds of details because I think it does add context, right? If, for example, we are in the hypothesis that Usman, at the very least, was doing this because he wanted more time on the show, then that story or that detail lends itself to that hypothesis. I will always say, and I have always said that Usman could want to be on the show and be very interested in that and want to be with Kim in the same instance. So who knows, but it does add some context to why she was even on the show.
Actually wanted to go on TV with Zara, but because of some of my reasons, I decided not to go on TV with her.
Did you know that was his plan to first bring Zara on the show?
That's interesting too. He was with Zara before and he was in love with her, according to him, and wanted to go on the show. And then he says for his own reasons, he didn't go on the show. That's interesting. I wonder if the show actually rejected him, because that would be like a single life thing, right? Maybe the show was like, well, no one is going to be interested in that, although maybe they would have been. But anyway, let's see what she says here.
I did not.
How do you feel about that? Do you have any feelings?
I felt like a second option. I'm not going to lie to you. I felt totally like a second option, you know, and it hurt. It hurt me so bad when I found all this stuff out. I can't even, you saw, saw what people failed to.
It hurt her feelings. Makes sense that she would be a second option. I will say that this idea, if you are a second option in a similar situation like that, this idea that somehow it's not real or not as significant as the person's first option, I don't agree with. I've seen this on Love is Blind, right, where someone will propose to get rejected and then they propose to someone else. It's just like with Jarrett and I can't remember her name, Iana, right? That somehow it diminishes the importance of that relationship, and sometimes for sure, but it's to some extent, all of us are second options to our current partners because in all likelihood they've had previous partners. So does that mean that our current relationship is a sham? No, it just means that people have trial and error when they're dating and trial and error in relationships, and eventually they come to you. And the other thing is even with Usman, he could be like, well, I want to be with Zara, but I'll make do with Kim, and then over time really likes her a lot and says, ooh, if I could go back in time, I would have chose Kim over Zara. Anyway, so I hope that she can take some solace in that. Again, I just want to say that with Usman, we don't know, and a lot of people are wondering what's really in his heart, and I have questions too. So if Usman doesn't really like her or doesn't like her as much as he's giving the impression, then that of course would put Kim at risk of being hurt in that way. Anyway.
To realize is, and I want to make this clear, I wasn't mad he was in a relationship. I was mad that when I told him I loved him and I stopped dating myself, because I was dating too. Good.
I'm glad she is clarifying that, because that was what I was thinking was happening, and that would make much more sense. So yeah, that makes total sense. She's saying, I'm not mad that he was in a relationship because we weren't in a relationship yet. I was mad that he deceived me the whole time and didn't tell me, which of course would be, really hurtful. And I feel like in the tell-all, they didn't really go into that, or did they?
A little friend with benefits thing going on, and when I stopped that because I told him I was catching feelings for him or whatever, he should have told me at that point that he was in a relationship. I would have never in my life.
Interesting. So she's saying she had a partner and broke it off with him, and because she was having feelings for Usman, she felt like she was cheating on Usman or something, and told Usman about that. And at that point, yeah, Usman should have said, oh, okay, well, she's actually changing her life to be more exclusive to me. Yeah, I should tell her that I'm in a relationship right now. At the very least, he should have told her, just so you know, I'm with other people. I hope, but he didn't. And yeah, that, now who knows? We'd have to understand, we'd have to see the communication back and forth. Maybe Kim made some assumptions about things, but it seems highly likely that anyone looking at their communication would conclude that it was Usman's responsibility to inform her about his relationship status.
He was wrong for that.
I'm Soulja Boy's girlfriend. I'm Soulja Boy's girlfriend. That's so crazy.
I want to get into a fan question.
Oh, here we go. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Deidre says, quote, I just got the fact that Kim said she's Soulja Boy's girlfriend, not Usman's. Was it that she was in love with his image?
They should have her on the tell-all, or they should follow. Now, people will criticize Sean on the tell-alls for not asking these kinds of questions. And maybe these questions were asked, but the thing I'll say is that Sean probably has very little to do with what actually is happening on the show in terms of what questions are asked and in terms of the edit. So we don't know what Sean's influence is, but we do know that the producers behind the scenes are the ones who are engineering all that. And I've heard speculation, and it makes sense to me that they are always thinking about the next season, and they are trying to set up, like I heard a theory that the reason why the cast were against Jimena and not Mike, and why they were all pumping up Mike, was because the producers were behind the scenes manipulating the cast members to actually believe that Mike was completely faultless and blameless and that Jimena was a jerkface, because they were setting up Mike to be on the single life because they believe that Mike is a gold mine for TV or something. And I could see that, honestly. So we can never know that. But of course, with Melisha Johnson from Entertainment Tonight, she doesn't have those pressures, so she can ask the right to the heart of the matter, which is, this was a central question that we had, because it did sort of look like that she has an obsession with Michael Jackson, and then the way she talked about Usman was similar to the way she talked about Michael Jackson. We can look at the race issue, ethnicity issue on that level. And then the way she talked, I won, I'm Soulja Boy's girlfriend, instead of, looking at Usman as a real human being instead of his role in society. So let's see what her answer is to this.
What's your response to that?
At first, I was in love with this. He's a celebrity. I was in love with that. But once, like I said, all these talks we had, and we talked like morning till night. Okay, I fell in love with Usman. Like I know who. Okay,
that's what I was suspecting, and it's interesting to hear that they would talk from morning till night. That there was because it's hard to imagine it because the way that they edit the show, but I'm always curious because for some of these cast members, it's the opposite, where they will only interact on camera. In fact, one of the cast members of 90 Day Fiancé reached out to me and basically told me that the person that they were with only wanted to interact in front of cameras, and they themselves wanted to interact behind the scenes because they wanted to be in a relationship. And it seemed like their partner, although into them, was only into them if the show was involved or something like that. And so we can have that end of the spectrum, but then for Kim, she's reporting anyway that they talked a lot behind the scenes, and that in the beginning, and it's good that she can admit that says a lot. If she were truly defensive, she would say something like, no, that's absurd, I would never, that's all complete, bull crap. But she says, well, actually, in the beginning, it was that way because he was a celebrity and I was a fan, and it did feel that way. It felt like, wait a second, I'm Soulja Boy's girlfriend? That's weird. But as time went on, I actually got to know the real him, and we bonded in that way.
It matters, right?
Yeah.
Was there any point where you felt as if Usman was using you to further his career? As far as like you two being on TV together?
Honestly, to God, I don't feel that he used me for anything. I don't feel that way.
Okay.
And it might be the perception of other people, and that's fine. Everybody's entitled.
All right, another great question. Is he using you for fame? And she's saying, I don't feel that way. She doesn't have she's not saying any data to back that up, right? If she did, I think it would be more convincing. She could be tricked. She could be convincing herself. She could be right in her assertion that he's not using her. I don't know, though. I don't know. Of course, well, what I'll say is there's no data to back up any claim that Usman is in it just for the fame. And as I was saying earlier, there's a possibility that he's in it totally for fame. There's a possibility he's in it for fame and to be with Kim, and there's a chance that he's only in it for Kim and he doesn't care about the fame. Seems unlikely since he was in a relationship with Kim and then he reached out to TLC and said, hey, let's do this, and actually had to kind of cajole her to be on the show. Yeah, I don't know why it's so hard for me to just let that one go. I frequently am like, well, really? Like Usman, and because I don't know. Maybe I'm influenced by comments of like Usman's not into her. But then, when I think about it, when he was with Lisa and when he's with Kim, particularly once they crossed that threshold when they became girlfriend, boyfriend, that there seemed to be genuine affection. It didn't seem to be faked. Could it be faked? Sure, but it seemed real. So anyway.
No! PS5! No. Oh my.
Okay, let's talk about the money. You bought him a PS5, MacBook, and that gold Soulja Boy chain. What's your response to viewers who feel as if you were trying to buy Usman's love?
Please.
Yeah, I find this simplification to just be so terrible. This notion, like, if you're dating someone and you give them a gift and you really like them, you're trying to buy their love. If you take out someone, to dinner and you pay for dinner, you're trying to buy sex with them. Certainly sometimes that is true for sure, but all the time she's coming to see him and she wants to get him gifts, and she's probably thinking, well, what does he really want? He probably doesn't want like a knick-knack or something. He probably would like a computer and a PS5. So that's what she got for him. She could afford it, and she decided to get that for him, and it's a nice gift. And yeah, this now, could it be trying to buy his love? Yeah. Could Kim have, prior to leaving, thinking like, been insecure and thinking like, well, is he gonna like me? And then she's like, well, maybe if I get him a bunch of things that'll kind of like up my attraction, his attraction to me. You could see that happening subconsciously or otherwise. But yeah, the simplification that she's some sort of, what people will say in comments is a sex tourist, that kind of thing. And it's a worthy topic of conversation, but to conclude that with a lot of certainty, I don't know if that's fair.
Thank you for asking me this. Okay.
Tell me.
I don't need to buy a man's love for anything. I don't need to do that. Okay. I didn't need to do that. Anybody, my friends, my son, anybody will tell you everything I do. And you just said it, everything comes from my heart. Okay. I like to make other people happy. I love that. I'm a giver.
That makes sense. She is like, I like him and I thought he might like this. And so I just felt like it would be fun to see him appreciating the gifts. The other question that we could ask is Usman in a situation where he needs someone else to buy him things? I don't know his financial situation. He might be like, I already have a PS5. I already have 3 computers. Yeah, I don't think we know enough about his background to know if this was a power down, meaning that she is financially much more relatively well off to him and is buying him off. What if he actually is more wealthy than she is and she's just getting him a gift? I don't know if we know.
It's a blessing and it's a curse. You know what I mean? But for everybody out there, I don't need to bribe somebody for sex. That's gross. Ew.
Okay. Well, speaking of that, watching yourself back, What surprised you the most about your behavior?
Great question. I'm really glad she asked that. Very open-ended. She could say anything or nothing. She didn't say, do you regret this thing? It's a great question, so we'll see. And I've been contending from the beginning that Kim, would cringe. Over time, I started to realize that she didn't cringe at herself because of the tell-all. There was at least nothing that we saw in terms of a discussion around that or a mention of that from her. But I did hear from someone, who emailed me this, that it did have something along those lines. So I'm really hoping that she can say, yeah, that whole scene where I was pressuring him for sex and because it lasted a long time and it involved some coercion. I think Usman I hope he's strong enough. He seems strong enough to be able to say no. So it's not like Usman is easily influenced in that way against his own wishes. But either way, it's not ethical behavior. So hopefully she'll mention that.
Oh, that whole scene with me in the pink nightgown.
But why don't you want to have sex with me, though? I don't understand.
We will have sex.
No, when?
I apologized for it on my social media once I saw it back. And I would never in my life, that's just, it was so bad. And
Okay, good. I've been on quite a journey with Kim in this way. And when it happened, I remember, I think in the moment saying, I think she's going to regret this when she sees it back, or at least the next day. I mean, well, I guess we could say she didn't regret it the next day. She regretted it when she saw it. So, the next day in the intervening weeks between the event in which she saw it on the screen, she didn't regret it. That happens sometimes, right? It feels a certain way in the moment, and then when we see it back, we're like, whoa. She was, I think, fairly intoxicated. She could have been, moderately intoxicated, who knows? So I'm glad that she regrets that, because that shows that she has empathy, that she understands that that behavior is not okay, that she can withstand criticism and actually not get defensive around this. So, good. I'm glad. I didn't see her apology online. I wonder what that was like, but this is good. I'm glad. Oh, so the journey I went on with Kim was that in the beginning, I'm like, I think she's going to regret that. And as every episode came out, I'm like, when are we going to see some regret? And then I'm like, well, maybe it'll be the tell-all, because by then, I think they show clips to them. And so I was like, tell-all. Didn't see any indication. I'm like, oh, well, I guess she's completely fine with all of her behavior over the season. I was wrong. My belief in her was wrong. In fact, someone even commented like, Kirk, I think you're biased for Kim, and maybe she reminds you of someone in your childhood, and so you're biased about that. And I thought about it, and I can't really think of anyone that she reminds me of vibe-wise. So my gut was right. It wasn't really a gut. It was, well, I think it was sort of a gut. I thought the way she came across didn't seem like the sort of person that would be that delusional about her responsibility in situations like that, or that defensive when faced with her own behavior on screen. So, think of someone like Jesse. Have you ever seen, just imagine how many instances where he would look at something of him, on the show and be like, yikes, and then an opportunity on the show to say that was wrong. We've never seen that from him, right? And that fits with his presentation with Kim. And I felt like, I don't know, I think she has some humility and she's exhibiting it here, which is good.
And I've apologized and I've put it to bed. That was good, huh? Put it to bed. But I feel I was mortified. I embarrassed myself. I embarrassed Usman. I embarrassed my son, And the crazy thing was I was drinking a lot, and I'm not using alcohol as an excuse.
I suspected that. When you're intoxicated, your ability to think straight diminishes, and you're more likely to do this. I will say that I hope that, it sounds like she's saying that she's already apologized it. She's put it to bed. She's put it to rest. I was intoxicated. I hope that she would take the time to really explore even how she got there, because intoxication doesn't result in this in most people, right? So there's something about the way that she thinks, or even in the mood she was in at the time, or something. There was an entitlement to it. There was an objectification to it. There was an anger to it. And we understand that those elements are present in a lot of assaults in people. Now, I don't know if Kim has ever assaulted anyone before. Who knows? But that attitude is particular, and it's not common. It's common enough, but it's not, anyway. So I would hope that she would look at that, because just being in a new situation, just being rejected, just being intoxicated doesn't explain why she did it. There must be something else going on.
I am 50 years old. I'm like, hey, I was nervous. But the way I acted, I was mortified. And like, I will never live that down, I don't think. And I got a lot of people that were like victims of like sexual, assault and all that. And I'm ashamed of it.
Okay, I believe her. That seems sincere to me. Does it to you? It looks sincere to me. That looks like she's truly mortified. We hear people on these shows sometimes apologize or take responsibility when they're not really, or it doesn't seem like they're really, or there's no evidence that they really are. They'll be like, look, I own up to it. Look, I already apologized for it, so let's move on. But there's a way of communicating what's in your heart, and I think she is. She's mortified. I know that some people have been assaulted in this way, and I'm mortified by that. It was wrong. I'm ashamed of it. So, it's good. Again, I would hope that she would investigate the underpinnings of that behavior.
If I could go back and change one thing, I would change that. Another thing I would change is calling Zara a bitch, because I'm a woman. And if you call me a bitch, I'm going to smack you across your face. So I did do an apology for that as well. And I felt bad. And nobody has to tell me to do these things. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, so she's saying that she regrets that. I hope that she regrets, taking the glass of whatever and splashing it in Usman's face. That's an absolute abusive act. I know that for some people it's just like, well, it's just water. No, believe me, I've treated perpetrators and victims of intimate partner aggression, violence, domestic violence, and that is definitely in that category. It is not a normal occurrence. Me and my wife, we have conflicts sometimes. That's never even occurred to either one of us, I guarantee you. So the fact that it even occurred to her, and the fact that she did it and walked away and said, yep, that was satisfying, I got him, that is a violent act. It's an act of humiliation. It's an act of entitlement over someone else's body, and not okay. Not okay.
Like, I do them from my heart. And I was like, damn, because it's not her fault. It's his fault.
So I had so much confidence when I got here and everything. And now it's just gone.
We, as women, I understand, right? Sometimes we place our self-worth in the hands of the wrong person, in the hands of a man.
I appreciate where this is going, but I don't appreciate genderizing this. She's saying, as a woman, we sometimes place our self-esteem in a man, and what I'll say is everyone does that. This notion that somehow men don't do that is ridiculous and harmful to men, because men do have issues with self-esteem, we all understand that, and will place their self-esteem in someone else's approval of them. This issue knows no bounds regarding gender. So I'll always call that out, because if she had just said, look, I've been there before, or I understand where you're coming from, or I've seen this before, but to say, as a woman. Now, she could say, the interviewer could say, well, I wasn't really saying that men aren't like that. I was just saying that some women are being, maybe there's some nuance there, but I never, whenever that happens, I'll probably always say something, because it upholds a stereotype and a notion that actually supports toxic masculinity, which of course we don't want, right? We want positive masculinity. The courage for men to be able to recognize their own emotions and their insecurities and their behavior, to be knowledgeable and compassionate, and all those positive masculinity aspects.
Nobody understands what he's telling me or what he's texting me. I didn't go down there not knowing he wasn't going to kiss me. I didn't go down there not knowing we were
But
going to have sex.
did he say we're gonna kiss and we're gonna do all that? Or did
I
you
mean, it was like, yeah, we use certain terms, but that's how it was. That's what pissed me off so much about finding out about this relationship.
Great questions. It really highlights how weird the tell-alls are, that because these are the exact questions that I think all of, did he lead you on about kissing? Because when you landed, you were on this assumption that all of that was sex and kissing and all that stuff was going to happen right away. And he was saying, no, not until, we're essentially dating right now. And in my culture or my values, I don't want to kiss or have sex with someone until we've actually committed to each other. And I have reasons to avoid that because you know what happened with Lisa. And she was coming across like she was entitled to it and she was upset about it. I understand how it would feel bad, and I understand how she would think, well, I think we're going to kiss at least, right? And then when that didn't happen, that would be disappointing. But to get angry about it seems a bit interesting and in that direction that I was talking about earlier. But the interviewer is like, well, did he actually say that you were going to kiss and that kind of stuff when you got off the plane? And Kim gave an interesting answer. She basically says yes, but kind of danced around it a little bit. So if we looked at the communication, would we believe, could we see that Usman wasn't lying? So would we see that Usman was lying? Would we see that he was leading her on? I don't know. Based on Kim's response, I could kind of see it going either way.
You're shorter than me, or, what if I wouldn't have been physically attracted to him? You know what I'm saying? But now, my self-worth is everything to me. My confidence is everything to me. And I have that now. I have it back.
And it's easier said than done. I mean, like I told you, I'm a woman. Men go through it too. I feel you. But that was something that was,
Okay, good. She did exactly what I was hoping. I didn't expect that. She's like, men go through it too. Great. Just say people. People go through these things.
It was hard to watch because
and it was hard for me to say it.
Yeah. Depending on the way the relationship was going, you would feel good about yourself, or the way you described it was I won or I lost.
So this is an interesting line of questioning. The interviewer is saying that it seems like your self-esteem was based on whether or not he liked you. I don't know if we know that her self-esteem was based. She really liked him. And when there were indications of rejection by him or lying by him, she was hurt by that. I wouldn't say that and maybe part of her self-esteem was affected by that. And that's normal, right? Like if my wife lies to me or hurts me in some way, I'm probably going to feel, at least slightly less about myself because I'm being treated in a bad way. That's normal. This idea that somehow your self-esteem, like people will say, how do I raise my self-esteem? And, there are two tracks. One involves fighting against doing things internally, doing things by yourself, meaning you combat certain ideas that are false, that have been injected into your head by saying nice things about yourself and say to yourself. But the other track is to actually have relationships that treat you in a way that holds you in esteem, and thus you learn, I am a worthy person of love and attention and to be heard. And from that, I can say, I have self-esteem. I like myself because I'm being shown that other people like me. And that's important. So, and people don't like that because it's like, particularly Americans, because it's like, well, they want to do everything on their own. They don't want to depend on other people. We're social creatures. So for Kim to be upset that she's getting indications that Usman doesn't care, I don't see how that's pathological.
Joke, because before I went to Zanzibar, we would like talk or whatever, and he called me potential or whatever, and I thought it was funny. I didn't think it was anything like, I didn't think it was that bad. And then so I told him, I said if we become or get in a relationship, I was like, I'm gonna just be like hashtag I won. It's totally a joke. Everybody's entitled.
Yeah, interesting. So she's saying it's like a joke, and I could see that. And I could see how it would become kind of a thing that she says, but she doesn't really mean what we think it means. But I also think that there were multiple instances of her indicating along these lines that she is somehow in the mindset of a groupie, right? In the mindset of a super fan, that you won the golden ticket to get into, Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. I won. I think there's some truth to that, and I could see a situation where that's not true in her heart, but it's hard to, maybe that's particularly a sore subject for her to be accused of, that she was in it, because he's famous, and she's probably seen a lot of criticism. I just can't imagine the amount of hatred and horrible messages that she's received in the time that she's been on the show. So it would make sense that you'd have some defensiveness around that.
To their opinion, I'm not saying they're not, but nobody sees the full thing. Nobody sees the text where he was telling me things, and nobody sees all that. They just see me being this desperate chick, with no confidence. But nobody's seeing, like, he led me on totally.
Okay, so I would believe that she's saying that again, did he lead her on? I think that's one way of looking at it, but another way of looking at it is that he was flirting he definitely lied about Zara, right? So that's leading on. But aside from that, he could have been heavily flirting, thinking, yeah, definitely. But when we see each other in person, we have to kind of restart to some extent. And he's thinking that, but not saying it. But he thinks that she knows it, maybe. Who knows? We'd have to know what was inside Usman's mind, and we'd have to see the communication to know the extent of the leading on.
I saw it. Yeah, I think that was clear. Another fan question. Kiki says, Kiki says, I thought Kim was down for Usman having multiple wives. Is that still the case?
Great. Did they go into this in the tell-all? Because this is a pretty critical question that, at least the way it feels for me right now, is I don't know. I mean, we heard a little, she did talk a little bit about it, right? Like she said, I don't mind if he has a kid with someone else. And maybe this will go into more depth on that. I'm curious what will happen here.
I am down for Usman to have a second wife, okay? But he needs to tell me about it. Keep me in the dark,
Yeah, okay, good. So she's saying that, yeah, I am down with him having a wife, but he needs to tell me about it. I need to find out about it. I don't, because it's cheating otherwise. That's interesting. And I think a major question is she really okay with it, or is she just convincing herself she's okay with it? But, maybe she's really explored it in her mind, and she is totally fine with it. And there are a lot of people who are like that, so maybe she's one of those people.
Oh my God, no, I'm so sorry, He was very disappointed in me. He was embarrassed because people don't think, they just don't DM me, they DM him, which I don't understand why. But he was really, it was bad. It was really bad. He was very upset with me. And I did a public apology, and I did it to Usman, and I did it for Jamal too,
Interesting. So we're hearing that her son was also mortified and upset at her for that scene that we saw in which she was pressuring Usman for sex, which is interesting. Again, I'm just going to keep saying this. Like, that would have been an interesting little detail for the tell-all, right? You ask Jamal, like, what'd you think about that scene? And have everyone just kind of watch that scene and have everyone look at, what does Usman think about it? Because Usman could be like, look, it's people are freaking out about it. It's fine. I understand that for other people that would have been a problem. For me, it wasn't that big of a deal. I didn't like it, of course, but it wasn't horrible for me the way that people are depicting it. Or Usman could say, that was traumatizing. That was, in fact, I pushed my date forward for having sex with her because I was manipulated into doing that. We don't know because the tell never really goes in those directions. It's just interesting that these interviews go to places where it feels so satisfying to have the questions that are burning in our heads just being asked, and then they just get answered, and you're just like, that's a thing? You can just ask these questions and have them answered?
I'm not going to take any more from people. Just not. You can't be, you can't be nice to everybody, because not everybody appreciates your niceness. Some people, I've had so many people in past relationships take, because I am a good person. But once I reach that point.
Interesting. So they asked, how have you grown from this experience? And she says, I'm not going to take any crap from people, which is good. If you're getting crap, that you should push back on that. But I wonder if what she's, and then she says in the past in relationships, they would take. I don't want to do that anymore. Okay, good. But is that what she's talking about when she was splashing him in the face with water and that kind of stuff? I wonder what she means by this. I wonder if she, I guess on the good side or the charitable side, she would be saying, well, meaning charity to her, that she would be saying, well, normally when someone lies to me in the past, I would just let it go. But this time I didn't let it go. You know, I really confronted him and made him apologize and made him know that he can't do that to me. And there are other instances like that as well. Then I would say, yeah, great. Or is it like, look, if someone pisses me off, I'm gonna get aggressive with them. I'm gonna be potentially hands-on or splashing them in the face with something. I'm going to demand things. Like, I don't know what she means by this, given what we saw on the show.
Point, like the throwing the water. Once I reach that point, it's just like, okay, whatever. You know, like I know now who my circle is. I know.
Wait, what? Was she saying that splashing the water in his face was a good thing or a bad thing? Let's rewind.
I've had so many people in past relationships take because I am a good person. But once I reach that point, like the throwing the water, once I reach that point, it's just like, okay, whatever. You know, like I know now.
Yikes. I mean, that's even worse to me than what was happening with the pressuring of the sex, that she is reflecting back on that, has seen that scene and said, good for me. That's me growing. Now, it's possible, and I've talked about this before, that when you are a doormat because you've been treated that way your whole life and you're a people pleaser and you're overly accommodating to your own detriment, the path forward to assertiveness, there's a middle phase where you actually will oppose more often than you probably should, or more often than is fair or even good for you. And then the third phase is the ability to assert yourself, strongly while considering other people's feelings. For example, not splashing someone in the face with water. You can certainly say, I'm upset and I'm going to walk away and I'm angry at you and how dare you, but to get aggressive with someone, not okay. So it sounds like she stands behind that, which is, Angela would do stuff like that and seemingly didn't have any remorse about that, which is upsetting.
I have self-worth. I know I'm a beautiful woman, regardless if it was no makeup or not. You know what I mean? I know my soul I have a very good soul and I have a very big heart. And I just will no longer let anybody take advantage of that ever. And that's just my life now, And I'm not saying I'm that bad bitch, but I'm just like, okay.
Okay, hard to know still. But if she's saying, look, I'm not going to be taken advantage of anymore, then that's great. That's a wonderful development in her growth. Absolutely, she deserves that. I'm just wondering what exactly she means by this.
I will always be a supporter of Soulja Boy. I love his music. I like the new song that just came out. I will always be a supporter of his music. Yes, I will always be a fan.
All right, well, that does it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really, really do.